The vial was cold. A dense cylinder of borosilicate glass, smooth and completely unmarked, pressing a perfect circle into Yusuf's sweating palm. It was no larger than his little finger, yet it felt impossibly heavy, a singularity of purpose and consequence. Inside, a clear, viscous liquid, indistinguishable from water, shifted with a minute tremor in his hand. Dolmar. Ilara Cohn's voice, a memory from a micro earpiece he'd meticulously pulverized into dust weeks ago, was a clinical echo in his mind, stripped of all emotion. The agent is designated BZ7. It is a derivative of 3-quineuclidinyl benzylate, a competitive antagonist of muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. We have engineered it for thermal stability up to 250 degrees Celsius by reinforcing the ester bond with a fluorinated carbon chain. The delivery vector is starch. It bonds with the amylopectin molecules in the flour. The dosage is critical. 3 drops per kilo of flour, not 2, not 4. 3. The dosage is everything. Overdo it, and the secondary cardiac effects, specifically tachycardia-induced fibrillation, could be fatal. Underdo it, and you create alert, paranoid enemies instead of docile subjects. He risked a glance at the mountain of dough in the large, dented aluminum basin. He'd been practicing for weeks, estimating weight by sight and feel. 15 kilos, maybe slightly more. 45 drops. His hand, slick with sweat, struggled for a moment with the vial's friction-fit cap, the polished glass feeling like it was greased with oil. The air in the kitchen was a heavy, suffocating blanket woven with the smells of active yeast. Crushed garlic, simmering lamb stew for the evening salona, and the faint, acrid tang of bleach from the morning's cleaning. Outside, the Bekaa Valley was being swallowed by dusk, the sun's final hemorrhage staining the arid peaks of the anti-Lebanon mountains a violent shade of purple and orange. This kitchen was the metabolic heart of the Scorpions of the Levant's primary training and operations compound. It fed 47 men daily, 47 soldiers, improvised explosive device technicians, senior strategists, and their monstrous leader. Tonight, Yusuf was their cook's assistant, a position he'd earned through 6 months of quiet, methodical work, of feigned piety and buried rage. He was also their complete undoing. He tilted the vial, the liquid clinging to the glass, before releasing a single, perfect drop. 1, 2. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hiss of the gas burner under the stew and the frantic, syncopated thumping of his own heart against his ribs. The head cook, a hulking man named Ferries, with a temper as volatile as the cheap kerosene he used to light his ovens, was outside on his smoke break. He could return at any second. The crunch of his heavy, steel-toed boots on the gravel path would be the only warning. 42 drops. 43. The concentration required was absolute. A meditative focus that pushed everything else away. The memory of his father's face, the crack of the rifle that had executed his brothers, the gnawing fear of discovery. He couldn't be seen counting, couldn't afford to lose his place. 44. 45. He snapped the cap back on, the faint click sounding like a gunshot in the tense quiet. He shoved the vial deep into a hidden pocket sewn into the inseam of his trousers, a modification he'd made himself with a stolen needle and thread in the dead of night. Now came the part that terrified him more than handling the agent itself. Distribution. He had to knead the dough, ensuring the colorless, odorless BZ7 was dispersed with perfect mathematical uniformity. If one loaf of cubs was potent and another inert, the plan would collapse into a chaotic bloodbath, with half the compound conscious and armed, while the other half succumbed to a baffling, invisible illness. He plunged his hands into the soft, pliant mass, The dough was warm, grotesquely alive. He worked frantically, his movements a blur of controlled panic disguised as efficiency. Folding, pressing, turning, rotating the basin, his actions, usually methodical and calm, were now sharp, desperate. He had to replicate the exact rhythm Faris had taught him. Any deviation, any hesitation, could draw a fatal question. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, crunching on the gravel path just outside the kitchen door. Faris was coming back. Yusuf's blood turned to ice water. He hadn't finished. The agent was still concentrated in one quadrant of the dough. He gave it one last, desperate fold, his knuckles white against the pale mass, and began rapidly portioning the dough into smaller balls, a task he was usually slower with, hoping the activity would mask his internal terror. The door swung open. Faris stood there, a black silhouette against the fading, deep purple light, a lit cigarette clinging to his lower lip. He took a slow step inside, his eyes, small and hard like chips of obsidian, scanning the kitchen. They settled on Yusuf, then on the neatly arranged balls of dough. Yusuf's hands were still coated in flour. He forced himself to regulate his breathing, to look up from his work, to meet the man's suspicious gaze with the practiced indifference of a lowly kitchen hand who knew his place. Faris took a final, long drag from his cigarette, letting the smoke trickle from his nostrils. His eyes narrowed. "You are slow tonight," he growled, the words a cloud of smoke and accusation. "The men are hungry." Yusuf simply nodded, not trusting his voice. He pulled his hands from the basin and reached for a floured cloth to cover the proofing dough. He didn't know if he had succeeded. He didn't know if he had just prepared 47 meals or 47 death sentences, or his own. The mission, codenamed Operation Manna by a small group of people 1,000 kilometers away, had just passed its first and most irreversible point of no return. The decision to contaminate a terrorist group's food supply was not conceived in a sterile boardroom. It was born from the blood-soaked pavement of a Vienna side street, from the catastrophic failure of conventional military force, and from the ticking clock of an impending catastrophe. The story of Operation Manna begins not in the Bekaa Valley, but 6 months earlier. A car bomb, a technically sophisticated device using 40 kilograms of Semtex arranged in a Misnai Chardin-shaped charge, detonated outside the Israeli consulate annex. The charge was focused using a concave copper plate to form a hypervelocity jet of molten metal, designed to penetrate the building's reinforced facade. 17 dead, 4 of them Mossad Katsas, operating under diplomatic cover. The attack was clinical, executed with an engineer's brutal precision. The signature belonged to one man, Tariq, the engineer, Al-Hamza, the new, ruthlessly effective leader of the Scorpions of the Levant. This wasn't their first attack, but it was their most audacious, demonstrating a new level of operational capability and a global reach that sent shockwaves through Western intelligence agencies. The Israeli government's response was swift and absolute. A directive was issued directly from the Prime Minister's office to the Mossad. Find Tariq al-Hamza, eliminate him and his entire command structure, acquire all intelligence related to his future operations. The mission fell to Caesarea, Mossad's elite special operations division. The man tasked with leading the hunt was a deputy director known only as Ariel. Ariel was not a bureaucrat. He was a living legend within the agency, a ghost who moved through the world's most dangerous places. His file, were it ever declassified, would read like a secret history of modern covert warfare. He was one of the lead planners for the 2010 operation that captured a key Iranian nuclear scientist in Tehran, a mission that involved creating a fake Belgian film production company as cover for a year. His defining professional trait was an almost pathological adaptability, an ability to improvise under extreme pressure forged in the crucible of the 1972 Munich Olympics. Flashback: Fürstenfeldbruck Air Base, West Germany, September 5, 1972. Night: Ariel, 22 years old and a junior officer in Sayeret Matkal, lies prone on the tarmac 200 meters from two Bell UH-1 helicopters. The air is cold, smelling of jet fuel and damp grass. He watches through his binoculars as the Black September terrorists and their 9 Israeli hostages disembark. Everything is wrong. The German police snipers are poorly equipped, using standard G3 rifles with no night optics. There are only 5 of them, a number Ariel's commander had been told was a lie. They'd been assured there were a dozen. The plan is rigid, arrogant, and idiotic. The Germans intend to have police disguised as the flight crew on a waiting Boeing 727, who will then overpower the terrorists. But the police unit, spooked and poorly trained, has already abandoned the plane without informing the command center. Ariel watches, his stomach a cold knot of dread, as the German commander gives the order to open fire. The first volley is a disaster. It kills 1 terrorist, but misses the leader, Isa. The firefight erupts into chaos. Ariel sees one of the helicopter pilots get shot. He sees the terrorists turn their weapons on the hostages inside the helicopters. He hears the screams. He watches as a terrorist throws a grenade into one of the helicopters, which erupts in a ball of fire. He is under strict orders not to engage, to only observe. He lies there, helpless, gripping his FN file so hard his knuckles are white, as the German plan, a monument to inflexibility, shatters into a massacre. The failure is seared into his brain. Never again, he vows to himself. Never again will a rigid plan be allowed to kill his people. Plans are a framework for thinking, nothing more. The real work, the work that keeps you alive, begins when everything goes wrong. Working alongside Ariel was Dr. Alara Cohn, the civilian head of Mossad's secretive biochemical warfare development unit, known internally as the Greenhouse. Cohn was a paradox. A quiet, unassuming woman in her late 50s with a penchant for Mahler and oversized cardigans, she was one of the world's foremost experts on non-lethal, incapacitating agents. She had defected from the Soviet Union in 1988, having been a senior researcher at the Stepnogorsk Scientific Experimental and Production Base, part of the Biopreparat program. She brought with her a wealth of knowledge on weaponized pathogens and psychoactive compounds that was both terrifying and invaluable. Her greatest public-facing achievement was the development of an aerosolized BZ variant used to end a 1996 hostage crisis on a hijacked Cypriot airliner without a single casualty among the 112 passengers. Her specialty was precision. She could design a compound to target specific neurological functions, to induce temporary paralysis, amnesia, or, in this case, a state of profound, disorienting lethargy, all while leaving minimal long-term physiological traces. The third vertex of the task force's leadership was Gavriel, a senior case officer in the Tsomet division, responsible for recruiting and running human assets. Gavriel was a master of human psychology who looked more like a weary university history professor than a spy master. His most celebrated operation was the recruitment of a high-level Syrian Republican Guard general, codenamed Orchid, an asset who provided critical intelligence on Syrian and Hezbollah troop movements for over a decade before his successful exfiltration. Gavriel's unique talent was finding the one hairline crack in a person's loyalty, be it greed, ideology, revenge, or love, and patiently, meticulously widening it until he owned their soul. These 3 formed the core of the task force. Their target, Tariq al-Hamza, was not a simple fanatic. He held a PhD in civil engineering from Imperial College London. He understood load-bearing structures, resonant frequencies, chemical reactions, and logistical chains. He applied this knowledge to terrorism, designing IEDs that were harder to detect and more devastatingly efficient, and building operational networks that were resilient and decentralized. He was methodical, patient, and utterly ruthless. His base of operations, the compound in the Bekaa Valley, was a direct reflection of his personality. Fortified, disciplined, and lethal. The geopolitical chessboard was treacherous. The Bekaa Valley in Lebanon was a semi-lawless territory, a hornet's nest of militias, terrorist groups, and the intelligence agencies of a dozen nations. Nominally under Lebanese sovereignty, it was, in reality, controlled by Hezbollah, with significant Syrian and Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps influence. A direct Israeli military strike was politically impossible. It would ignite a multi-front regional war. The catastrophic failure of a previous attempt, Operation Iron Fist, underscored the danger. 8 months before the Vienna bombing, a team from Sayeret Matkal attempted a nighttime raid on the same compound. The intelligence, based on a single, uncorroborated human source, suggested they would find a small group of 20 fighters. Instead, they walked into a heavily fortified base housing nearly 50, equipped with Iranian-supplied night vision and passive acoustic sensors that detected the team's approach from over a kilometer away. The Israeli team was ambushed. 3 soldiers were killed, and the team was forced into a chaotic hot extraction under heavy machine gun fire. The Scorpions celebrated the failed raid as a divine victory, releasing high-definition videos of the captured Israeli weapons and equipment, including an advanced Taver X-95 rifle with a Mepro More sight. Iron Fist was a profound humiliation for the IDF and a searing lesson for Mossad. The compound was a hard target. Any conventional approach was suicide. The operational environment was further complicated by the covert activities of other nations. A French DGSE team was known to be active in the region, meeting with Syrian intelligence contacts to covertly purchase and reverse engineer some of the Israeli military hardware captured during Iron Fist. Their presence was a constant threat of accidental exposure. Concurrently, the CIA was running a persistent drone surveillance program targeting suspected al-Qaeda affiliates moving between Syria and Lebanon. An MQ-9 Reaper drone loitering at 25,000 feet was a constant wildcard. Its powerful optics could inadvertently spot Mossad movements, and its presence could spook Tariq's group into changing their patterns at any moment. For months, Gavriel's network of informants patiently worked to map the compound's inner life. The intelligence they gathered painted a grim picture. Tariq al-Hamza was not just planning another bombing. He was orchestrating something on an entirely new scale, codenamed the European Cascade. Intercepted communications were fragmented and heavily encrypted, but the whispers from vetted sources were alarming. Coordinated, simultaneous attacks on multiple European capitals, targeting transportation hubs and financial centers. The Vienna bombing, they realized, was just a prelude, a proof of concept. The pressure from the Prime Minister's office was immense. An airstrike would level the compound, but would also kill dozens of civilians in the nearby village of Al-Marj, creating an international firestorm. The options were narrowing to zero. The problem wasn't just killing Tariq, it was dismantling his entire operation and acquiring the actionable intelligence on the Cascade plot before it was too late. This was the genesis of Operation Manna. The idea was floated by Ariel during a tense, late-night strategy session in a soundproofed room deep beneath Tel Aviv. "We can't go through the front door," he had said, pacing the room. "We can't go over the walls. So, we have to be invited inside. We have to become part of the furniture, part of the food." The concept was radical. Use a non-lethal biochemical agent to incapacitate the entire compound simultaneously. In that window of unconsciousness, a small surgical team could infiltrate, achieve its objectives, and exfiltrate. It was elegant, audacious, and fraught with 1,000 points of failure. It required a perfect agent, a perfect delivery system, and most critically, a man on the inside. That's when Gabriel spoke up. He mentioned a potential asset, a file that had been dormant for months. A young man named Yusuf al-Jamil, whose father and 2 brothers, minor players in a rival Salafist faction, had been brutally executed by the Scorpions in a territorial dispute. Yusuf had survived, vanishing into the region's vast population of displaced young men. His current position found through a low-level informant, an assistant to the head cook in Tariq al-Hamza's Bekaa Valley compound. The pieces began to fall into place. The mission was no longer about a simple assassination. It was a complex, multi-layered intelligence operation. Incapacitate the entire garrison, capture Tariq al-Hamza alive for interrogation, and, most critically, seize all intelligence related to the European Cascade. Operation Manna was approved. The clock was ticking. Yusuf's recruitment was a delicate dance of trust and manipulation. The next phase was establishing a forward operating base. A small 4-person Kidon team, under Ariel's direct command, infiltrated Lebanon. Their cover was a team of German archaeologists studying Roman-era irrigation systems. Their base was a rented farmhouse on a ridge 5 kilometers from the Scorpion compound, a technological marvel disguised as a rustic dwelling. A set of camouflaged solar panels powered a suite of signals intelligence, SIGINT gear. A long-range thermal imaging camera, a TIS-2000 model disguised as a rusty rooftop water heater, provided 24/7 surveillance. Communication with Yusuf was via a sub-GHz burst transmitter disguised as Islamic prayer beads, a misbaha. The device recorded 10 seconds of audio and compressed it into a 0.7-second encrypted data burst, hidden within the noise of a regional radio station. The first major setback occurred 3 weeks before the target date. Yusuf sent a panicked burst transmission. Supplier changed, new flour, sealed polymer-lined bags, from Turkey. Tariq, in a move of routine operational security, had switched suppliers. The original plan to intercept and pre-treat the flour was now impossible. The new plan was terrifying. Yusuf would have to administer the liquid agent himself, directly into the dough, inside the compound's kitchen. The margin for error shrank from days to seconds. The vial was passed to him in the hollowed-out handle of a German-made butcher's knife he was instructed to purchase from a designated market stall. The transaction was watched by 2 Kidon operators from a rooftop a kilometer away. Their SR-25 sniper rifles trained on Yusuf, with the terrible understanding that if the handoff was compromised, they would have to eliminate him. The handoff was clean. Then, the second complication arose. The French DGSE team. Ariel ordered his team into total electronic silence for 72 hours. They went blind, a massive gamble that the French, finding the area sterile, would move on. The silence was agonizing. On the 3rd day, the SIGINT operator, a young genius nicknamed Echo, detected the French signals again. They were moving east, towards the Syrian border. Ariel's gamble had paid off. The lost 72 hours meant the window of opportunity was closing. Intelligence from Tel Aviv confirmed that the European Cascade was entering its final phase. The Prime Minister's office sent a one-word directive to Ariel: execute. The date was set. It would happen in 48 hours. Gabriel sent the activation signal to Yusuf. A specific brand of canned Italian tomatoes placed at the front of the market stall's display. Yusuf saw it. That evening, He sent a one-word burst transmission back. Bismillah. In the name of God. The operation was a go. 25. Inside the compound kitchen, Yusuf uncaps the vial. His hands are steady now. The initial panic has been replaced by a cold, clear focus born of adrenaline. He counts 45 drops into the massive basin of dough, his movements shielded from the doorway by his own body. He is alone. Faris, the head cook, is at evening prayers. Yusuf has a 7-minute window. He caps the vial and secures it. He begins kneading, his life depending on the rhythm of his hands. The clear liquid vanishes into the white mass. 2012. Faris returns. He inspects the dough with a critical eye, pokes it with a floured finger, and grunts in what passes for approval. He tells Yusuf to start shaping the loaves. The first hurdle is cleared. 2045. The flat, round loaves are in the large, wood-fired oven. The temperature inside climbs to 220 degrees Celsius. In the farmhouse, 5 kilometers away, Dr. Cohn's theories are being put to the ultimate test. Ariel, Gavriel, and the 4-man Kedon team, Ronan the team leader, Dov the breacher, Amir the medic, and Yael the tech specialist, are gathered around the main screen, which shows a live thermal feed of the compound from the TIS 2000. 47 distinct heat signatures are visible, most of them gathered in the main mess hall. 21:30. The evening meal is served. The thermal feed shows figures moving from the kitchen to the mess hall carrying trays. The bread, a staple of their diet, is distributed. On the screen, the heat signatures are stable. They are eating. The team in the farmhouse holds its collective breath. 21:55. Echo, the SIGINT operator, his headphones pressed tight, raises a single finger. He has isolated the audio feed from a laser microphone aimed at the window of the eastern guard tower. He plays it for the room. A guard is talking to another. His speech is slurred, the words thick and clumsy. He complains of a sudden, powerful wave of dizziness. My head. It feels like it's full of sand. The ground is moving. A moment later, there's a soft thud. 22:05. The thermal feed in the mess hall begins to change. A few of the heat signatures, which had been bright and distinct, slump in their seats. Then a few more. It's happening, not all at once, but in a slow, cascading wave. 22:10. A wave of confusion is visible even on the grainy thermal image. Figures stand, stumble as if drunk, and then collapse. There is no panic, no alarm. Just a quiet, inexorable shutdown. The thermal signature of Tariq al-Hamza, identified by his consistent position at the head table, slumps forward and does not move. 22:15. We have total incapacitation of all targets in the mess hall, Yael reports, her voice tight but professional. Guard Tower East is down, Tower West is down, roving patrol is down by the main gate. Ariel nods, his face illuminated by the screen's pale glow. Ronan, you're green. Go. Suddenly, the main screen flickers. A wave of static washes over the thermal image, replacing the clear picture of the compound with a blizzard of digital snow. What was that? Ariel demands. Yael's fingers fly across her keyboard. I've lost the feed from the TIS 2000. It's a hardware failure. Power supply is stable, but the focal plane array is non-responsive. Damn it, Ariel spits. Backup? Handheld thermal, lower resolution, no zoom. We'll be half blind. Ronan says, already checking the battery on a smaller monocular. Get me Tel Aviv, Ariel orders. Glitch pit, now. The comms channel crackles to life. A frantic voice from the underground tech bunker in Israel fills the room. Ariel, it's a cryocooler failure. The Stirling engine has seized. The focal plane array is overheating past its operational threshold. You've got nothing. Can you reboot it? Negative. It's a mechanical failure. Yael, the voice says, addressing her directly. You need to get me a direct diagnostic, but you can't do it from there. The implication is clear. The primary eyes of the operation were dead. We go, Ronan says, his voice flat and resolute. He slings his suppressed HK-416 over his shoulder. We have confirmation of incapacitation. We stick to the plan. Ariel hesitates for a fraction of a second, the ghosts of Munich swirling in his mind. A plan failing at the first step. Go, he says, his voice like stone. But you are on a hair trigger. Anything feels wrong, you pull out. As the Kedon team moves to their vehicles, Yael switches to the handheld thermal imager. The image is grainy, pixelated. She scans the compound. Mess hall, dark. Guard towers, dark. Barracks, dark. Then she stops. One heat signature, bright white, moving. It's in the small workshop adjacent to the main command building. It's not stumbling. It's pacing, methodically. Ariel, we have a walker, she yells. One subject is still conscious and mobile. Workshop building. The team freezes at the door. How is that possible? Gabriel demands, his face pale. The dosage was calculated for a man twice the size of anyone there. He didn't eat the bread, Ariel surmises instantly. Or he's got a metabolism like a hummingbird. Who is he? Yael cross-references the location with their intelligence. The workshop is the personal domain of one man, a Chechen mercenary known as Victor, ex-Spetsnaz. He's their senior tactical trainer. He's known to be paranoid, eats only canned food he opens himself. He wasn't in the mess hall. A furious debate erupts. Abort the mission, Gabriel says, his voice shaking with anger. We pull Yusuf out now. A conscious Spetsnaz operator against our team in a confined space? It's a death trap. The risk is unacceptable. Unacceptable? Ariel rounds on him. The European cascade is days away from killing hundreds, maybe thousands of civilians. We have 46 hostiles down. We are not aborting this mission for one ghost. We neutralize him and proceed. This is not Munich, Ariel, Gabriel shouts, using his name like a weapon. You are not sacrificing this team and my asset on a reckless gamble. You're goddamn right it's not Munich. Ariel roars back, his voice a low, dangerous growl. In Munich, we waited. We followed a stupid plan, and we waited while our people died. Tonight, we move. We adapt. Ronan, he says, turning to the team leader. New objective, infiltrate, neutralize the Chechen, then proceed with Tariq and the intelligence. No noise. Use the subsonics. Ronan simply nods. He looks at his team. Amir, you're on point. Yael, you're our eyes. Dav, be ready for a soft breach. Let's go hunting. 22:35. The team's two Polaris MRZR buggies roll silently down the dirt track from the farmhouse, their electric motors making barely a whisper. They stop 500 meters from the compound's perimeter fence. The team dismounts, moving like wraiths in the darkness, their multi-cam patterns blending perfectly with the arid landscape. They carry HK-416 carbines with integral suppressors, loaded with 19.4-gram subsonic rounds that will not produce a sonic crack. They reach the fence, a 3-meter chain link topped with concertina wire. Dove pulls out a pair of hydraulic bolt cutters. With 2 silent, powerful snaps, a section of the fence is opened. They are inside. Yael, positioned on a small rise outside the fence, watches through the handheld thermal imager, whispering into her throat mic. Target is still in the workshop. He's stationary now. Looks like he's at a workbench. The team moves with liquid precision, leapfrogging between buildings, using the deep shadows as their highway. They reach the workshop. The door is thick wood. Dove places a small rectangular charge of shaped C4, no bigger than a deck of cards, over the lock mechanism. It's a keyhole charge, designed for a low-noise breach. He attaches a detonator. "Breach, breach, breach," Ronan whispers. Dove presses the button. There is a dull thump, like a heavy book falling on a carpeted floor. The lock is vaporized. Amir kicks the door open, and the team flows inside, weapons up, sweeping their sectors. The workshop is empty. It smells of gun oil and welding fumes. On a workbench, a Kalashnikov rifle is field-stripped, its parts laid out neatly on an oily rag. A half-eaten can of Russian-made beef tushonka is next to it. "Yael, where is he?" Ronan whispers urgently. "He's not there." Yael's voice is laced with confusion. "That's impossible. My thermal showed—" "Wait." She pans the imager. "I have a heat source behind the main building, moving fast, toward the barracks. He must have slipped out the back." Victor knew. He had heard the soft thump of the breach. It was a sound he was intimately familiar with from his time in Chechnya. He hadn't eaten the bread because he trusted no one. When he saw the men in the mess hall begin to slump over through the window, he didn't panic. He analyzed. This wasn't a poison.